we are able to vote, right? It's a privilege, responsibility of U.S. citizens, but of course completely your choice. We know that voting in the United States tends to be pretty simple, right? On the day of elections or early voting, you go to your polling place, you cast your vote, you receive the cool little sticker, which is my favorite part, and then you get to go home. But those of us who are living overseas and helping those that are voting absentee have a little bit more of a complicated process. But the hope is today you'll gather information that will help you to break some of those myths about voting absentee and making sure that people understand that it is not as difficult as it looks, and making sure that those that are living overseas have the chance to vote if they'd like to. So we know that there's a 2024 presidential election this year, but as well there are also a third of the Senate that will be up for election, as well 435 seats in the United States House of Representatives, as well as governors in 13 states, and then there's going to be ballot questions, referenda, and then state and local offices. Important to note that when you are sending in your SPCA, you'll be able to say which ballots you would like to receive for federal elections, as well as for, if you have any state or local offices up for election. Some states will allow you to vote in those elections, some states don't, so it will just differ on that, but you'll be able to see that when you're filling out your form and following the guide. So by the end of this workshop, I would really hope that by discussing UOCAVA, the Uniform and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, as well as talking about the Federal Voting Assistance Program, and also the voting process, you guys will gain all this information today, recognizing resources that are available to voters and yourself, as well as recognizing voting assistance guidelines, and then the role of a voting assistance officer, and how to best manage that program and going forward with helping absentee voters in this 2024 election. So, the Uniform and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. I'm sure most of us, has everyone heard of UOCAVA before? It's a word that's floated around in terms of absentee voting. Okay, well, the Uniform and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act is the law that prescribes the right for people to register and vote simultaneously to request their absentee ballot and then vote by absentee ballot. So those that are covered by UOCAVA are going to be anybody that is an absent uniformed service member, so there's a representative for the DoD here today, as well as absent members of the Merchant Marine, eligible family members of the two above groups, so spouses, any children that are eligible to vote, as well as U.S. citizens that are residing outside of the United States. So a little bit about the population. There was an OCPA done in 2022, that's the Overseas Citizens Population Analysis, giving us some information about what the typical voter might look like voting absentee. So obviously there's no like direct way to say, but there is a diverse group to say that the median age is 49. Nearly 2/3 are working. Also, they're highly educated with nearly half holding a graduate or professional degree. We also see that the top reason for you can't see it. So 2022 CPA saw that respondents that were living abroad were either employed or volunteering. And then we also see that a lot of respondents were living in the country of residence for more than 12 years. Anybody that's lived here in the DR for more than 12 years that votes absentee still? Yeah? How long have you been?
I was born.
Oh, you were born here, but you're a dual citizen, yeah? Okay, that's beautiful. So then also in 2022 when we did the OCPA, we noticed that the highest percentage of those that did not vote was because they had difficulty figuring out how to vote. So the process and understanding how you would send in your absentee ballot. And then of course 20% seeing that that voting process was too complicated. And then lastly, some other challenges that may have come up. So we're going to see a little bit of data now in terms of diagrams from the OCPA. So we see that 4.4 million U.S. citizens are living overseas. That's from 2022, so of course we probably see that upward trend because we do see that more people are moving overseas. And we notice that 2.8 million of them are able to vote, those that are eligible. But if you look over here on the right, you'll notice that in the States, 62.5% of U.S. citizens vote, whereas 3.4% only living abroad are voting absentee. So it's a pretty big gap. And we're noticing that it's 18 times more likely to vote in the United States than they are if they're living overseas. And so you'll see here, this is just a diagram showing where the top populations are overseas of United States citizens. So you'll see Canada's #1 right now. I think this does tend to fluctuate a little bit. Canada is #1, United Kingdom being #2. So there's lots of places on here, and the goal of the Federal Voting Assistance Program, or FVAP, is to do workshops at the embassies and consulates around the world to make sure that people understand that the tools and resources to vote absentee are there for them, and that they have that right to do so wherever they are in the world. So a little bit of the profile, the demographics. So we see that all ages are roughly, the highest amount is going to be 65 plus, so maybe those that are retired, living overseas. I know I was talking earlier, there's a lot of retirees in Puerto Plata and other places within the Dominican Republic. We also see the educational status, more than a bachelor's degree, usually tends to be the highest, 45%. We see that a lot of people are working overseas, and that's why they are living overseas, and then of course, the highest percentage being 12 plus years of residency within the country that they're living in. This one, so on the left side all the way, you'll see that those that returned a ballot, that was 84% that they were successful to do so. The 16% that were not successful to do so, or did not do so at all, the top difficulties you'll see were that they had difficulty figuring out how to vote, they had issues with the voting process, as we talked about in the previous slides, and then you'll see that 28% of people within all age ranges did not want to vote. And then 72%, so a high percentage, was showing that they just could not complete the process. So the hope is that FVAP can break some of these myths, and coming here today will help for you guys to explain these processes to overseas citizens that would like to vote absentee. So then again, another estimated turnout. So in 2022, there were about 94,000 returned ballots, and you'll see that about only 3.4% was a turnout for eligible overseas citizens. And this is just showing those top countries that we saw before and how their voter turnout was. And if you see, Germany had the highest with 9.8% of their 80,000 eligible voters. So lastly, components of the voting gap. So the voting rate, as we said, 62.5%, but if you see on the right, the voting gap overall, you see that the residual gap is just those that did not vote. They chose not to for whatever reason, that is their right. But we see that only 5.8% of those, it was through an obstacle gap. As we talked about, some of the reasons being that they just didn't understand the process, or it was too complicated, things of that nature. And then of course, again, that number, that 3.4%, so pretty low, but we want to push that up, and that's why we are doing these things with you guys, keeping our connections. So, the Federal Voting Assistance Program, FVAP. Everybody has been familiar with FVAP, correct? Yeah? Kind of? Okay. So the Federal Voting Assistance Program, we are working to ensure that service members, overseas citizens, and all their eligible family members are aware of their right to vote and have the tools and resources to do so from anywhere in the world. And so how we do this is that we work with a lot of our partnerships we have with the military services. So we have about 160 some workshops that we're doing this year, both virtually and in person. And we go to the installations, we do workshops for those, they have voting assistance officers for each branch. We also work with the Department of State, that's why I'm here today. Thank you to Kristen and Elizabeth and everybody for putting this together today. For the Department of State, Department of Justice, that's kind of like our strong hand. They're just looking over to make sure that that federal code that we follow under, for the Department of Defense instruction, the DOTI 1000.04, stays strict, right? So that way no state can push back someone's FPCA or their FWAP to say we won't accept this because it is a federal protection, and so the Department of Justice will come in and help us handle that if need be. And then of course we work very closely with all the election officials within all the United States. Because we want to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information. You guys will see there's a guide in front of everyone on the table. That has all the local election information in it, as well as some other information we'll go through later. But yeah, so that is why we work close with the states to make sure we have the most up-to-date information so that people can send in their FPCAs and their ballots. So the absentee voting process. Is anybody familiar with the FPCA? Has heard of the photo postcard application? Anybody actually voted absentee in the past? So a decent amount of us, okay. And did you feel like you had a decent, like a pretty easy process, or it seemed complicated? Pretty easy? Okay. Yeah?
Is it complicated?
No, it's not too
No, it's not complicated. It's just, I didn't know if it would arrive in time. It was just very nerve-wracking, but it arrived.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so here's a little diagram of what it's going to look like. So when a voter wants to send in their absentee ballot or their register or request their ballot, they are going to start with the FPCA, which everyone has in front of them. That is going to be how they will register and request. So they're going to fill that out. They're going to make sure they sign it with a wet signature. Then you're going to send it to your election office. That's where they're going to accept your request and process your request. Now, 45 days before the election, they are going to send out your state absentee ballot for you to be able to vote. Once you receive your ballot, you're going to vote your ballot and return it to the same election office, where the election office will receive your ballot and they will cast your vote for you, count your ballot. Now, that's a perfect world, right? And hopefully the right world where you send it in and it does everything it needs to be. But just in case you don't receive your state ballot after you sent in your FPCA, so let's say you're 30 days out and you don't receive your ballot, you are going to want to fill out what we call the federal write-in absentee ballot. Everyone has one of those in front of you as well. That is a write-in ballot, so you are going to see that it has your registration card on there or your information paper that you'll fill out. It's very similar to the FPCA. Then you have your actual ballot where you will fill out who you're voting for. And that actually, the FWAB is really great. The FWAB is short for the federal write-in absentee ballot. The FWAB has an envelope connected to it, so you can put all of your information in there and send it with the envelope. You don't have to worry about an envelope. The FPCA hard copy, it's really great because it serves as a postcard. So all you do is fill it out, you pull off those little sticky strips, and you fold it up, and it becomes like a postcard, and you can send it in the mail exactly like that. Now there's a little bit of a different process if you fill the form out online, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Has anyone had to do the FWAB before? Was unable to do their state ballot? No? Okay. Okay, so the absentee voting process, of course, there's hierarchies in every place within the Federal Voting Assistance Program. And then, of course, in the Federal Voting Assistance Program, within the State Department, you'll see, or the embassies, that you have your top person, which is the Senior Service Voting Representative, your SSVR. Those implement the actual State Department-wide voting programs. And then you have your Service Voting Action Officer, your SVAO. That's Jason Gettle, if anyone's familiar with that name. And then there's also another woman who's also helping him because he got deployed. So she's also helping. I can't remember her name at the moment, but she's also someone you can reach out to. And then the State Department Voting Assistance Officer at the ACS level, your VAO, your Voting Assistance Officer. That's Kristen over here. That is who will assist you with voters on the ground, maybe answer questions. If any of you are ACS personnel and you're working with a voting, an absentee voter, then if you have questions, you can reach to Kristen, and Kristen can also point you in the direction of us. So lots of avenues to get your questions answered if you're unsure how to assist a voter. This is the Voting Assistance Program hierarchy within the military branches or on installations. So at the top you've got the Service Secretary, then you have an SSVR as well within the military, each branch, and then you also have your SVAO for each branch of the military. Then within that, on each installation is an IVAO. Then there's an IVA office, which they're required to have as like a little area where you will go to vote, or you can go and get your questions answered. There's like a printer, there's a scanner, there's a fax machine, a computer, so that way people that are on base have a place to go fill out their form, ask any questions, and send in their information. And then of course the people on the ground, similar to the voting assistance officers here at ACS, there's unit voting assistance officers that are assigned to smaller units that actually are sending out information to those in their unit or command or group, so that way their military members can vote absentee if they are stationed away from their home. Okay, so the post responsibilities, hopefully providing support all year by disseminating FVAP and DOS voting assistance officer messages. So hopefully there should be some trickling down of information about voting absentee, upcoming election deadlines, things of that nature. And then, of course, the post is going to assist voters by educating them about absentee voting, as well as answering questions if they do have any questions or pointing them in the right direction. vote@ff.gov is our email. You can always point them in that direction if they have questions that you're not sure of. And then also providing the necessary forms. So everyone has one form in front of them, both the FPCA and the FWAB, but there's also extra forms over here, so if you guys would like to grab them, I'm sure they'll be set down in the ACS area if people do come asking for those forms as well. So, knowledge check. I know I talk really, really fast, so hopefully you heard. What office does a voter submit their ballot in FPCA to? Anybody want to shout it out? You got the Federal Voting Assistance Program, the local election official, IVAO, or your Service Voting Action Officer?
Local election office.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I can't hear it. I'm a little bit deaf. So, yeah, the local election office is where you're going to send it into. Exactly. Great. So now we'll talk about resources. I'm actually going to skip here. Okay, so everybody should have in front of them some of the resources that are sitting up here. So the voting assistance guide, that's this one. I'm going to steal this off of us. So if you notice in this book, chapter 1 is in the front. That's going to be where you'll see how to fill out the FPCA, what an FPCA looks like. as well as how to fill out the FWA. So just general information about all that, and I think I believe there's even some in one-pagers about how to do that, voting residency and things like that. Then in Chapter 3, that's where the voting assistance officer is, as well as there's information about like frequently asked questions. So if someone comes and asks a question and you're not sure how to answer it, you can reference this book, as well as contact information for all of the different embassies, as well as a calendar in the back that will show you where all the primary elections are by the month. And then on the back is our contact information, so our social media contacts, as well as our phone number, email, things of that nature, and the site as well. But then if you look at Chapter 2, this is Chapter 2. Does anyone know why Chapter 2 looks like this, from what I said? Yeah, exactly. So everything in here is going to be the local election office information for each state, as well as regulations and deadlines for each state. Important thing to know is that every single state is going to differ on how you are able to fill in the FPCA and the FWA, as well as how you will send it in, and as well as how you will send in your ballot. So I'll just open to Colorado. So in Colorado, you can read in here, it will say that, for example, maybe you'll have a U.S. citizen who will come to you and say, my child, they're 18, they're eligible to vote, they've lived in the Dominican Republic their whole lives, but they're citizens of the United States, right? How can they vote? And let's say if they're from Colorado, you would go to either this guide here, hard copy, or you can reference the guide online. And in this top section, there will be a place where you can read, and it'll say, I'm an American citizen, but I have never lived in the U.S. Can I vote in this state? So in Colorado, anyone who has a parent or legal guardian, spouse, or civil union partner who last domiciled or lived in Colorado is eligible to vote. So your child would be able to register and request their absentee ballot through Colorado because you were from Colorado. So if anyone comes asking, you can reference that information. You'll also see the deadlines here. So there's deadlines for registration, for the primary, the state primary, and the general. And then there's also deadlines for the ballot request, as well as deadlines for the ballot return. So that's in there. Then if you turn the next page of any state, you'll see that the FPCA guidelines are here. So each section by section, you can find out what information is required to fill out the hard copy forms. Then if you go over, you'll see that they also have step-by-step instructions for the FWA and how to return it. And then of course, the last few pages are going to be where all the local election offices are. So you'll see that they're listed, they all have their email, the address, maybe a fax number, as well as a phone number. And if you look too, this QR code is going to be your best friend in terms of election offices, because once you click this or you scan this, it will take you to the most up-to-date information about the election offices. Because like I said, there's overturned offices, things like that. They do change their emails kind of sometimes, and they'll send that into us through email. And what we do is we go and update it on the site. So essentially this book, as soon as it's printed, which it was just printed in January, it's out of date because the information is updating frequently in terms of local election office. So just keep that in mind whenever you're helping an overseas citizen voter. If you're unsure if the guide is up to date, just scan that QR code and just read that state's guidelines within the online guide. Okay, so then you'll see that you have the FPCA. These are the forms, the FPCA and the FWA is in front of you, as well as the resource booklet. This is super important and things that you can use when working with overseas citizen voters if they come to you, is all of these pages in here, they're perforated so you can rip them out and make copies. There's no copyright infringement, anything of that nature, so you could scan this onto your computer, add little information. Maybe you put like the embassy's phone number and like I said, if there's an email attached to the ACS that they can contact with questions, you can put that on there and then print it out and post it up somewhere, things of that nature. So totally free to change things. There's also a copy of the FPCA, and it's usable to send as is. So you could tear this out and use it if you wanted, and everyone can take the resource booklet home with them today. So this is just a good way to have some of the one-pagers. Like for example, there are deployment tips in here, information about VAOs, information about commonly asked questions, as well as information about residency, because you may get a decent amount of questions about residency. So those are in there too. We also have online the FAT portal, as we'll see later a little bit. That's like where you're going to find the information to all of this. So If you forget any information today, you can go to fvap.gov and it will all be there for you as well. And then of course we have fact sheets and other materials that we can see later. So the voting assistance guide, I just kind of went over all of that. Here's the QR code if you want to scan to see what the online guide will look like. But you'll see a little bit of that later when we go through how to fill out the FPCA. So I'll wait a second if anybody wants to scan this and check it out. But again, the most up-to-date is going to be online. And then you're going to want to consult the voting assistance guide due to the state's regulations because, as I said, every state is going to differ on what is needed in order to send in the FPCA or the FWA. So here's a little video.
To vote absentee in U.S. elections, you must register and request an absent.
Oh, maybe none of the videos will work. I'm sorry. Why?
Se paró de nuevo.
Absentee ballot.
No, aquí el primero no funcionó bien.
Is this a PowerPoint that you can share with us?
So I believe
From your state of-
access to the PowerPoint. Do you guys have like a SharePoint place? That you guys can post it? Yeah, if someone can post it there for you all. It's a pretty large document, so when I send, I have to send it through VOD Safe because it won't send through email. So hopefully there's a SharePoint you guys can put it on and have access to it. Does anyone have questions so far? Since we have a little bit of a... Oh wait, yes ma'am.
Not a question, just an observation for those of us living in Virginia. What I learned is we were supposed to, what I learned this morning for free, is that we are supposed to submit an FPCA, the request for the ballots, once a year. Because I had done it once a while ago, and I realized they weren't proactively sending me the ballots unless I emailed them to ask. But apparently the reason for that is that I'm supposed to do it every year. So even if you've done it once before, you're supposed to do it every January, right?
Yeah, and so I'll talk to that. So as you said, you're going to want to send in the FPCA every year. And we do recommend, like, every time you change address, send in an FPCA. And the reason why we say every year is because most of the time in most states, when you send in your FPCA, it's only going to cover you for that election year. There are some states, those of you may voting in California, if you send in your FPCA to California, you are covered for 4 election cycles. So that's like a lot of years, 2, 4, 6, 8 years, right? So what we recommend at FVAP is that you send it in every year just in case, because also let's say that you request your FPCA to California in 2024, and then you move in 2026, but you don't send in another FPCA, they're going to send your ballot to your old address, and it cannot be forwarded. Your ballot is not forwardable. So if you change addresses or you're nervous or anything like that, we just recommend as good practice, send in an FPCA every year. And also, if you think about it, sending in one every year makes it easier every time, so then it's not as a secretive process, right? It's easier and you understand what you have to do to be able to send it in. A lot of states allow these days, because of COVID, to send it in through an online version, either online or by email. The only caveat to the forms are they have to be wet signatures. There are a couple of states that are now allowing CAC signatures for those that have a CAC. I think Maryland, you can use the FPCA CAC signature, and then there's some that actually let you use the CAC signature for your ballot, but it's a very small amount of states. There's only like 3 of them, I think. Maybe North Dakota or something, or Nevada being one of those. So we just recommend, for good practice, making sure you print out your form and sign it with a wet signature, and then scan it back on if you are going to send it by email or online. Okay.
It still doesn't seem like it loaded well, but we'll try it.
Okay.
If not, I can send it out
These are just
after.
fun little videos to kind of...
To vote absentee in U.S. elections, you must register and request an absentee ballot from your state of legal voting residence. You can do this with the Federal Postcard Application, also known as the FPCA. Go to fvap.gov and fill out the FPCA. All you need is internet access and a printer. When complete, download and print the FPCA so you can sign it. Then send it to your election official using your state's approved submission method. Be sure to send in a new FPCA every year and every time you change your address. Go to fvap.gov for more information.
So, just a little bit about filling out your FPCA every year. You might have to re-click into the, yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. So,
Oh.
perfect, thank you. So, those of you that will be assisting absentee voters. The most important things that you're going to want to be looking for are making sure that the forms are complete. This is like kind of referencing the guidance of it, just making sure that everything that is signed, it's filled out. Obviously, we don't expect you to remember all this information, you know, what each state requires and things like that. So keeping a guide on hand or referencing the online assistant, as well as, you know, if someone is asking you very serious questions about tax implications or, you know, well, if I have a license in this state and I lived in this state for 2 years, but then I lived in another state and then I moved overseas, what we recommend is pointing them to legal counsel because there could be tax implications and things of that nature. So don't feel like you need to answer very like complicated questions about residency and legal implications of that nature. Also making sure the handwriting is legible. I always tell people as a like little point to write in all capital letters. It just makes everything neater and easier to read because we know when we write lowercase, we all have an accent to how we write. Also, making sure that when they're submitting the FPCA, you need to consult the guide and help with finding their election office contact information for them, as well with assist with printing the postage paid envelope. So you'll notice that the hard copy form of the FPCA is already situated to be able to mail exactly as is, right? But if someone prints off the form from filling it out online, signing it, and they want to mail it by printing it off, they need to print off this indicia here and paste it onto an envelope. So you can glue it or tape it to an envelope, or if you have the means necessary to print the envelope with the postage page envelope like indicia on there, you can do that, but I noticed that sometimes it's a little difficult to have the actual envelope and print it properly. So there is a postage page envelope that you can print out and just kind of tape it on there. Do recommend though that you do not staple anything. If you staple things to the envelope, it cannot be processed properly by USPS or anything of that nature. So make sure that nobody is stapling their envelopes with that indicia on the front. And then of course assisting with email or fax submission, whatever transmission is supported by the state. So every state's going to differ in terms of how you can return your ballot, your FOB, and your FPCA. Some states allow you to mail, email, online, or fax. Some states only allow you to fax or mail. Some states, if you're registering to vote, like in Florida, those of us voting to Florida, if you are registering to vote and requesting your ballot, you must mail your form. But if you are just requesting your ballot and you're already registered, you can go ahead and just email online, send in your FPCA. So there's little caveats for each state, so it's important that you check out. And the good thing to know, you'll see later, is that the FPCA and the FOB, if you fill them out online, it will bring up a package that will show you how you're able to send it into your state. So it brings everything up for you. So the hard way to fill out the forms is the hard copy way, because you have to follow the guide, whereas using the online assistant is much easier and intuitive. So, voting residency, yes sir?
So I had a really quick question. Are some of these forms also in Spanish too? Because I know that
the forms are available in 7 different languages, Spanish being one of them, Portuguese, I believe there's Mandarin Chinese, there is Italian, I believe, Arabic, so lots of different languages. There's been a lot more that were added this year. So if those are available online, you'll see at the top when you go to fap.gov, there's like a few little links up at the top. One being election materials. That's where you'll find all the like posted paid envelopes, things that you can print out for sending in your forms. But there's also translated materials, so that will have all the different options for translated forms for the FPCA and the FOB. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. So residency, you might get a few questions about this as I was talking about. Voting residency is your legal residence, right? We understand that you can only have one voting residence for federal elections. And also, it's important to note that you don't have to have any current ties. So when you're filling out the form, you'll notice at the top, it asks you what kind of U.S. citizen you are. Are you someone that is going to be returning to the United States? Maybe it's uncertain, or maybe you have no intent to return. All of those are okay, as long as you've had a property, right? So you don't have to be holding a property, you don't have an intent to return. It's just a way to show that you had lived in that state before moving overseas. So if someone comes asking you questions about that, you're going to want to point them in the direction of wherever they were living last before moving overseas. But of course, we don't want to tell people where they last lived or where they should be voting. So maybe keeping the agency to them, but just letting them know that it's important to know that it's where you were living last in the United States. That's where you will be wanting to fill out the form for. And then of course they can make that decision on and where they will choose to vote. Ultimately, the states do decide if the forms are approved or denied. So if they feel like they want to vote in New York, but the last place they lived was Florida, All you need to do is help them fill out the form for New York, and if it gets approved or denied, that's up to the state, and they would have to contact their local election official at that point to find out whether or not they are approved or denied. And then a really cool thing, some states do allow citizens who have never resided in the United States to vote, as I was talking about with Colorado. So each state will differ. I think on FFAP.gov there is a tab you can go to that will list every single state within the United States that allows for those who have never lived in the United States to vote. So you'll be able to find those on FFAP.gov as well. Any questions about residency? No? Feeling good? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's not the thing. So, this is kind of hard to see. So, an incomplete FPCA, can anybody see this? Because if not, I'm just going to click past it.
It's weird. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. So, the incomplete part would probably be that they didn't sign it. So, if you're recognizing an FPCA, it's not signed. And then also, too, important to note is that most states are going to require a political party for primary elections. So if they're bringing you an FPCA to send in for primary elections, they have to fill out this section to say what their political party is. Even if they write in their party, like if they're not, Democratic, Republican, they'll have the option to just write in their party. And then I think that's all that's. Oh, and then of course you see here too, they're missing their address in the United States. So section 2 is your address in the United States that you need to put. And if they're not having that, they need to make sure that they put in an address, or their FPCA will be automatically denied. So a little bit of some automatic denials is probably going to be the address address in the United States, and then signing the FPCA or the ballot forms. Okay, so here's a zoom in of each section. So we'll talk a little bit about it so you're familiar with what the form looks like and how to help someone. The top boxes, if someone can't check off one of those boxes, it probably means they're not an absentee voter. They're going to need to be able to fill in one of those boxes. Either they're active duty, uniformed services, or they're an eligible spouse or dependent, or a U.S. citizen living outside the country and have a certain type of intent to return, either none or maybe uncertain. Then, of course, you're going to make sure that you also in section 1 fill out your last name, first name, and then, like I said, each state's going to differ based on the social security number and then whether or not you need the last 4, if you need your whole social security number. Some states require a driver's license, or some states just require a state ID number versus a driver's license. So every state will differ in that way. And then in section 2, like I said, this is where you're going to be voting to. So the state that you will be voting to. This is not where your current address in the Dominican Republic would be. It is where you will be voting to. Section 3 is not on here, but section 3 is your current address. Yes, sir?
A question on the address in the U.S. I'm currently registered in Florida.
Okay.
Since I'm here, I have my house rented in Florida. Someone else is living there.
Okay.
They're probably using that address to vote too. Is that going to cause a problem?
No. So they will not send any materials to that address. It is basically just a way to tie you. The way that I think of it is just a way to tie you to the United States. So proof to show that you lived there and you last domiciled there before moving overseas. You don't have to own the property anymore. You could be renting it out. The property could be bulldozed down and be a mall now, things of that nature. And you can even, you'll see in section 6, it doesn't show section 6 either for some reason, but so in section 6, this is an important part too. Some states do require a little bit extra, but I believe Puerto Rico and Vermont are the only 2 that require some extra stuff, like a signature. Sometimes it's kind of like a witness signature, but in section 6, you can write out any extra information that you need to help process your form. So let's say that you do have that address and you just want to make sure that the election office understands that you rent that property out or you don't own it anymore. You can keep a little note there to say, like, I don't own this property, but this is where I lived before, or this property is now a mall, it's not there anymore. It's just whatever will help them process your form faster. So you can add that info if you would like. The only thing that I will say about section 2 is that it cannot be a P.O. box. So if you're filling this out and your address that was in the United States is a P.O. box, it will not work. You do need to have an actual address, but your current address in the Dominican Republic, if it's a P.O. box, that is okay. You can't have a P.O. box in the Dominican Republic. So, section 5. Okay, so section 5, that's going to be where you're going to put how you want to receive your voting materials. So FFAP recommends that you put that you would like to receive your materials email or online, because at the 45-day mark before an election, they're going to send out all the ballots, the absentee ballots, right? If you don't mark anything here, or you choose mail, or you choose fax, Some states don't allow us to send ballots by fax, so you have to check with your state. But if you choose mail, they're going to send it by mail. And you don't know how long that might take. It could never get to you potentially. I'm not sure about how the Dominican Republic's mail system works in terms from coming to the U.S. back and forth. So we recommend that you do email or online because every state is required to offer the option for you to receive your ballot by email or online. So we do recommend that. Also though, just a note that if you don't mark anything here, if you forget or something, or you just don't mark anything, they will send it to you by mail. That will be like the baseline of what they will do. Let me make sure this is working. Yes. And then, like I said, if you're sending in the FPCA and you want to vote in the primary elections, you will need to put your political party. The general election, I don't believe most states require you to have your political party, but if you are sending in for those, you will fill that out there. And then, like I said, Section 6 is to add any extra info that you need to put in. And then, of course, the most important part is the signature and the date and making sure that you sign with a wet signature. So that's what you're going to be looking for if you're helping someone fill out the form or you're filling out the form yourself.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Pardon me.
Alright, so this one right here. So this is just a little video. So we've talked about how to fill out the form hard copy. Now we're going to go through how to fill out the form online. And this is actually the easier version, right? So online you're going to see that you are able to fill out the form by clicking on your state and then your jurisdiction or county. And then it's going to automatically populate everything that is required for that state to fill out the form. And that's important to know because you're not going to have to reference the guide for each section. It's just going to automatically bring up everything that's required of you. So you don't have to worry about making sure that you filled out anything because there's going to be little asterisks. And if you don't fill in that asterisk area, it will not let you move forward with the form. And also, you want me to, oh, you're going to click it? Okay.
Yeah, let's try.
Okay, so yeah, so here's what the page will look like, the main page. You can click request your ballot down there, where you can click down there, the drop down for your state. This is how every state page will look. You'll have your deadlines for federal elections. There will be some buttons here if the state has an election website, some states do. And then you're going to click Start the FPCA. So this is going to bring you to the online assistant, where you'll see this Privacy Act statement letting you know that this is not registering you by using this online assistant. It is just helping you fill out the form. So you click your county, and then it's going to bring you, and it's just going to walk you through the form just like you would if you filled it out by hand. So you've got to put what classification you are. Then, like I said, you see the red asterisks. You're going to have to fill out everything that's marked that way. A little note about the form, Section 4, that I missed by accident, apologize, is over here on the right. I wish my little pointer worked. That's alternate information. We recommend that you put at least an email or a phone number because legally, if you fill out the form and it is not right, the local election office has to contact you to let you know, like, this was wrong or we need more information from you, whatever. So we recommend that you put either an email or a phone number or both if you're able. They will not send you like a bunch of like, I don't want to say propaganda, but like election materials, like random materials. They're just going to reach out to you to make sure that you, like, you know, if you didn't fill out the form properly, they need extra information from you. And then this is where you'll fill out your voting residence. So that's the residence that you are going to be voting to in the states. And then see, this Utah's already put in there. So everything is kind of already set up for you. And then you'll put your zip code. And the nice thing about this too is that it's going to give you the suggested address. And then this is the mailing address, so that's going to be your current address. That's where you're going to be putting the address here in the Dominican Republic. There's a forwarding address section, but this more so applies. Sometimes people who live in Mexico will use a forwarding address, like a P.O. box, and they'll put that information in there. And then see, it will pop up again with alternate information. Then you can click whichever elections you're eligible for, or if you just want to do federal. And then it's going to bring up a review section for you to see everything you filled in to make sure if you need to make any changes, you can go back through. So this person, they forgot that they wanted to put an alternate email. And this is a good place to note that that first email you're putting in as alternate contact information, put that as your personal email. Those of you that have maybe a .mil or a military email, You're not going to want to put that first because there tends to be firewalls and blocks. So if there's anything with like links or anything like that, it might be kicked to your spam. So you're going to want to put your personal email first. So then it brings up the package. And as I was saying, the package is going to show you all the deadlines and returning your FPCA. So then you're going to click download your PDF package. So this is where you'll see when you need to send everything in. It's going to show you recommended mailing dates if you are in a certain area. It's also going to show you where you can send it. So if you want to send it by mail, what's the address? If you want to send it by email or fax, it's going to show you all of those things too. And then there's a transmission cover sheet, and there is your FPCA. So it will all pop up looking exactly like the hard copy form. This is where you will choose to print, sign your form, rescan it onto your computer and send it in by online system, or you will just mail it in looking like this. But you will need to provide an envelope in that case. Any questions about the online assistant? I know it moves through it fast. Yes, sir.
Did you say the wet signature?
A wet signature just means by like a pen. Yeah, so it needs to be signed. It can't be like a digital signature. Like you know how sometimes on like iPads and things like that? Yeah, no, you cannot do that. Yep, it needs to be like an actual pen signed form. Yeah, that's the only little caveat. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the federal write-in absentee ballot. We'll go through this and then we'll show you the online assistant version of doing that as well. It's very similar to the FPCA. So I'm just gonna rip one up so you can kind of see what it'll look like. So you'll see that there's 3 different sections to this, okay? So the first section is gonna look exactly like the FPCA. Now the FWAB, it can require different information. Some states require a different, maybe not the your social security number. Maybe it'll require your driver's license instead. You're going to want to follow state guidelines for this. Once you sign this and fill it out, you can just fold it in half to make it easier to put into your envelope. Then you have your voted ballot. This also tears off. The voted ballot, you do not want to sign anything. So if anyone comes to you and they show you this and they have a signature on it, you might want to recommend to them to redo it. Or if they don't want to, it's their choice. You can just help them to send it to their local election official. But if you, they should have, well, let me stop here. So you won't be able to see in here because they'll have it folded up. But if you see anything signed on the outside of it, it's also obsolete. There cannot be any type of identifying information on this ballot at all, or it will not be counted. So when you see that someone comes to you, there's sticky parts here, so they'll pull those off and they'll just stick it together. And then what's great is that the FWAB comes with its own envelope. So you'll see that you open up the envelope, you'll put in their voted ballot. It's already technically in its own secrecy ballot, right, because it says official ballot on there. If someone fills out the FWAB online and they come and it's printed out, it will need to be in a separate envelope. So they'll need technically 2 envelopes. They'll need the larger envelope here, as well as the secrecy envelope. And what they can do on the front of that is just write secrecy envelope, and that's it. And hopefully that's what they've done. Hopefully they haven't signed it. And that's something you can ask if you choose to. If someone brings you a package and they're like, this is, you can say, did you sign anything? Did you put your signature on your secrecy ballot or on the envelope? And if they say yes, then you can recommend that they maybe do it over again. Or you don't have to ask that question. It's totally up to you guys. And then of course you will put the FPCA part in there. You'll seal it up. And then it's ready to send, postage paid because of this indicia here. You'll just need to make sure that they have the correct election official information here, and then they'll have their information up here on the top left-hand corner. So that's what the FWAB is going to look like, all finished and ready to go in the hard copy form. But essentially, if they print it out, it should also look like this. They should be able to have 2 envelopes, the big one, and then the smaller one inside that has their voted ballot in it. Does anybody have any questions about what the hard copy looks like? Filling it out, anything of that nature? No?
If they bring the whole thing already sealed.
Already sealed? Yeah, then you just tell them drop it and take it, yeah. And if they mess anything up, that's going to be on them, and the election official can decide to contact them or not, or yeah. So that will ultimately be up to the election official. Just making sure that it is that it has the proper address is the only thing I would mark on there. So just double checking that their election office has the proper address on there, so it gets to the right place.
So most likely, usually probably might be black and white.
If it is black and white, that's okay too. It does not need to be in color. Neither forms need to be in colors. Yeah, that's a good question. Any other questions? No? Okay. Great. Okay, so let's just watch a little video on how to fill it out online, the FWAB. It's going to be similar to the FPCA. The great part about the FWAB is also easier online because what's going to happen is once you click your state and your county, it will automatically populate all of the candidates that will be available to you within your state. Now, of course, if you have a candidate you want to write in, you'll have that option as well, but the drop-down menu will have all of the primary candidates or like the general election candidates once it gets to that point as well. Also, while we wait, I think it might be ready. Oh yeah, cool, okay. So again, you'll choose your state from the drop-down or from requesting. It's going to take you to the state page here. Then you'll click Start Your Backup Ballot. And then it'll also bring you to the same page, the Privacy Act statement, just letting you know that you need to still print this out and sign it. And again, you're only signing that first page, right? The one that looks like the FPCA. That one you will sign. So that one needs to have a wet signature, just not the voted ballot. Will have no signatures. Now this here, not everybody will have this option. Some states will differ, right? Some states will allow you to send in the FWAB, even if you've never sent the FPCA in. Some states require that you've sent in the FPCA first, and then if you don't get your ballot, you can send in the FWAB. So there's a little bit of differences there too. So the most important thing to note today is fvap.gov and making sure you check each state's guidelines, whatever state that you are helping a citizen with, or if you're doing your own, filling out your own forms. And again, you're just going to fill out this exactly like you would the FPCA, following along with the asterisk marked ones, and then as well as the contact information. And here, Utah, they ask for either your ID number or the last four, so you can choose which one you would like to do. Voting residents being, again, the residents you're voting to within the state. And see, so how Section 6 pops up on the hard copy form, it will pop up differently on here. You'll see there was a little box that says, if you have a rural route, or there's any other information you want to add about your address, that's where you'll put that information there. See, and then also there'll be any additional information at the end. So you can add any information that you need in order to help process your forms. And then here's where you'll choose your candidates. So again, you can write in your candidate, and I think actually there's no drop down for this one, but usually there's a drop down. So for the presidential primaries, there'll be a drop down where it'll show the candidates for Republican or Democrat, and you'll be able to choose from those. But if you're writing in your candidates for like the special elections, then you'll need to write those in. And then here they're going back and editing after they've checked through everything, putting an alternate email like we recommend. Okay, and then you review it, just like you would the FPCA form. And then here is the completed package. And again, this does not send in anything, so you will need to click download the PDF package. And it will bring up everything for you that you'll need in order to send in your FWAB. It'll show you the deadlines, as well as how and where you will send it. So for example, Utah allows you to send your FWAB by mail, email, or fax. And then this is the cover sheet. Now this is definitely something you're going to need to sign, see, because if you're sending your FWAB from fax service or email, you're going to have to recognize that you're waiving your privacy rights due to the fact that your ballot will be handled by like a middle person, if that makes sense. So you will have to fill out that part of the form. And then you'll just hit print. And you will move forward as well with the envelopes, as I said, the two envelopes, the one for your secrecy ballot, and then also the larger envelope like the FWAB has to send everything in together. Thank you, Kristen. Alright, so now we're back to some more resources that are available to help voters or yourself. If you notice here, there's a big QR code that you can scan if you'd like to check out the page where all the resources are located on fvap.gov. We have a lot of resources that you can give out or point people in the direction to. Lots of fact sheets on the UOCAVA, the law itself. as well as handouts and posters. We also have training videos as well as promotional videos and also videos on YouTube on how to fill out the FPCA and the FWOB. There's also fact sheets that are talk about the FPCA, the FWOB. You'll notice a lot of these are included in your resource booklet as well that you can make copies of yourself. There's also different things about UOCAVA myths and realities, spouse information, things of that nature. And also, if you want to order more outreach materials, for example, you'll see that there were wallet cards, trifold brochures, and there's posters. Those can be ordered from FAP.gov, so you'll do vote at FAP.gov just asking for some more outreach materials, and we'll send those out to you here at the embassy so that you can hand those out if you do any outreach events or have a table set up or anything like that for those that have questions. Okay. So, check on knowledge. Where can you find information on your voting assistance officer responsibilities? Kristen, we asked this earlier. But anybody else want to answer? Does anyone remember where I was saying you could find some of that stuff? Yeah, on the website, exactly. There's a tab for voter assistance responsibilities. There's also within Chapter 3, as I said, you can find in the assistance guide, you will find information about your voter assistance officer responsibilities. Alright, so voting assistance guidelines. So there is a voting action plan that will outline election cycle dates, as well as recommended dates for outreach leading up to the elections, as well as registration and ballot return recommended dates, so all that information can be sent down. And then also the Department of State does have its own voting action plan that might be different than like those voting plans that are happening within the military branches as well. And then of course you can access all of these voting action plans at FAP.gov if you would like to read more about those. Voting assistance officers. So I guess there is a central voting assistance officer, right? But then also all of you as ACS personnel, I guess in a way are voting assistance officers, right? You're gaining this information today so that you can help with assisting absentee voters if they have questions, or at least pointing them in the right direction, right? So if you know, establishing personal relationships with your unit, so making sure that you know, you're talking to everyone within your ACS personnel, maintaining regular meetings with the, that's more so for military, sorry, sharing voting information, conducting outreach. So you could always, you know, set up a table, or if there's any type of voters weeks that you guys partake in, there's usually, there's an Overseas Citizens Voters Week, I believe it's July 4th, and then there is an Absentee Voters Week, and that's in October. So that's usually, you know, that's after people should have had their registration in and things like that, and should be getting their ballots back. So that's a good time to push out information, especially if you have access to like other citizens groups within the Dominican Republic, and if they have any liaisons or volunteers that you can send this information to that they can push to those in their community who are voting absentee or that are overseas citizens. And then of course posting voting information in common areas. So there's some pretty large posters. I think there's one there. You can order more of those and put them up like in the cafeteria here in the embassy. You could put them up. We have banners that are, yes ma'am.
Well, I was just going to say, for everyone's awareness at ACS, we are going to be sending out periodic voting messages. The first one will be this week or next week, just for all U.S. citizens that are registered in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. So that's for U.S. citizens residing in this country or traveling here, maybe voting from here. So that'll be coming out and is a resource for all U.S. citizens, but that will.
Thank you. And then, of course, we recommend that filling out your FPCA, as we talked about earlier, at the beginning of each year. And then, of course, pushing out that information for sure at July 15th, too. That's another little deadline that you can send out information to make sure people are sending their FPCA in, at least for that general election, right? So those 2 dates are what we recommend for delivery of the FPCA. So, social media sites. I know you guys are posting some of this recording on the social media. FAP also has its own social media, so you can post from, you can repost, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook. I do a lot with the social media in the off years of election, but we also have help during the election cycles, and we're posting 2 to 3, 4 times a week. So if you follow our pages, you can also share this information that way. If you have, you know, friends who are overseas citizens that want to vote, this is a good place to share information, as well as displaying the voting banners, as I talked about, and posters. And then also participating, like I said, in those 2 overseas citizens and absentee voting weeks that will be happening this year. So there's a continuity folder that must be maintained for voting assistance officers. It is an IG inspectable item. I don't know if IG actually transfers over to State Department, but this is also something that needs to be maintained. You can have it in hard copy or internally. This is more so, I believe, for the voting assistance officer, Kristen, that you will need to make sure that you keep. Things that will need to be included are the voting assistance guide, the Hatch Act, a hard copy or an online version of the FPCA, the FWAB, as well as the State Department guidance, voting news releases, maybe good ideas, lessons learned. So keeping note of stuff that might be a good idea or something that you were like, oh, this didn't work out so well, maybe we can do this better next year or next election cycle, as well as your training certificate as the voting assistance officer. You can also see that materials will be available for download at fvat.gov/VAO/continuity. So there is a tab on the site that will tell you about everything you need for your continuity folder. So we've reached the end, which is usually the best part in everyone's opinion, but I hope that you've learned a lot today. The absentee voting process. Does anyone want to tell me what the 3-step process is? Just someone, anyone. Somebody. Shout it out loud. What's the 3-step process of sending in to get your absentee ballot?
Fill out the FPCA.
Fill out the FPCA, then where do you send it? Yeah, okay. And then when you receive your ballot, you need to vote it, right? And then where do you send it again? The local election office, perfect. Okay, and then the little caveats are that you need to make sure you check what?
Signature.
Yeah, it's signature, and then also making sure you're following the guidelines of what each state, right? So that you are following what they need on each form. Okay. And then as a VAO or ACS personnel that are helping those that are voting absentee, just making sure that you're able to assist with the FPCA, the FWAB, and other absentee voting needs, maybe questions about residency of that nature. Also making sure that you use the resources available at fvat.gov. Yes, ma'am.
On the website, is there a place where you can find if you register?
No, so that's going to be by your state. So what I'll recommend is finding your local election office on fvat.gov. You can do that. And then contacting them. They'll have their email, phone number, all of that. So you can reach out to them and register. But again, if you don't know if you're registered, the cool thing about the FPCA is that it's going to do both for you at the same time. So as long as you know which state you're going to be registering to vote to, you can send that in and it will register and request your ballot for you. All right, and then making sure you manage your program, tracking voting assistance, what you might be doing, and then providing outreach, sending out the messages as you guys are going to be doing through the Safe Traveler system. And just making sure that if they do come to you with questions, point them in the direction of us. We have a team of 10 of us. We're here to help every single day, Monday through Friday. No Saturdays or Sundays, thankfully. So if they have any questions, you can send them our way, vote@fvat.gov. And then we also have a phone line that works from 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully now you should be able to recognize some of these things and be able to do them. So describing the purpose of the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, identifying the role of the Federal Voting Assistance Program and what we're here for you guys. To do describing the absentee voting process, which we all did. I think everyone's familiar now. Resources, voting assistance guidelines, and then of course being the voting assistance officer and what Kristen's guidelines are for that and being able to manage the program and making sure that we assist voters as need be when they have questions. Okay, so before we get to questions, I just want to say, please fill out the second half of the evaluation sheet for me, please, please. And you can leave it up here at the front whenever we're finished and you're leaving out of here. I do appreciate it. But now I can take any questions you guys might have. I'll be sticking around for a little bit, I think. So if you want to ask me personally, you can too.
If you're not voting in the primary, just waiting for the general, we can push this along. We can keep these forms and wait closer to do everything.
So
if you fill it in now, they're going to give us the information for the primary.
Yeah, I would recommend just sending it in now.
Okay.
And you can choose which elections you want to vote for. So you could mark that I want to vote for only federal elections, and then you could put down, I think there's a section you can say like I only want to receive the general election ballot, or I only want to I want to receive primary and general, or you can just write a little note that says I want to receive every single ballot I am eligible for. Yeah, so you can choose that. I would recommend to send it now because the thing is that there are going to be deadlines for the FPCA, and you don't want to miss those because then you're running on the gamut that you might not receive your ballot and you have to fill out the FWAB. So it's a little bit simpler to probably just go ahead and send it in now to make sure you're covered for the election year. Any other questions?
in our DPO address, I know our post office guys here, we use our DPO address as our address here, correct? No?
I would not do that. Yeah, I would recommend just putting your personal address.
No, then as far as receiving it.
Yeah, since you're part of the embassy, yes, of course you have to use your DPO.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. You know, I just want to tell you, you know, for the local people here, do not use the DPO. Because, you know, we're not the extension. We're not going to send you Punta Cana or whatever, as you know. You know, they ask you, can I use, because sometimes it happens a lot. When we're boarding, we have people locally come and they give us to DPO the address to send in the States. No, we don't. You know, we just use for the boarding, not anything else. But you, of course, are use the DPO.
Okay, that's what.
But I do recommend too, and I'm sure you know this, is to mark that you would like to receive it by email or online. Because again, even if you use the DPO, like, not that I'm saying there will be a long process, but if you choose email or online, it will be automatically sent to you on that 45-day mark. So then you have plenty of time to get it back, depending on how you have to, if you have to mail your ballot back. So if you choose to receive by mail regardless, even if it takes only a few days to receive your ballot, it just pushes that timeline. So FAP recommends that you mark to receive it by mail email or online.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
No, I just want to invite you. You mentioned about how it was the DPO or so forth. You know, I invite you downstairs to show you how we process, and if you want,
okay.
You know how the process goes as far as sending the States from. We never use a DPO. We use an unclassified pouch.
Okay.
And this is actually for 1,300 embassies around the world.
Oh, wow.
So when you, just for your information, you can stop by, you won't miss the DPO, and I tell you how, even DPO mail, how it works around the world, how it gets sent to different embassies.
Okay, yeah.
Just for your information.
Sure, I'd love to see that. Thank you. Well, thank you guys. This is all of our contact info. If you have any questions, I'll stay in here for a few minutes and can answer those. Please make sure to keep your evaluation sheets up here at the front before you leave. And then, of course, everything that's in front of you, you are welcome to take. Those are resources. We have extras if you'd like.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
For those of us in ACS or who are sort of voting assistant officers, if you just stay for one more minute, we're going to have Jonathan Castillo explain to us like how it's actually going to work for people to use the embassy as a place to drop off these forms.
They have like 6 or 7, but they can order more. So yeah, go ahead and take one for sure.
Right? You have to stay, do we?
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
Solo quiero compartirles que aquellos que deseen votar aquí, vamos a colocar fuera de área consular lo que sería una caja de votos. En español, aquellos que deseen votar aquí, fuera del área consular, República de Colombia y afuera, donde está la fila para entrar, ahí va a ser colocada una caja de votos. De lunes a jueves sería el horario de 7 de la mañana a 3 de la tarde. Y los viernes hay un diferente horario que sería de 7 de la mañana a las 12 p.m. Bien. So in English, well, we will have a boarding bus outside the consular section. All of you who are willing to vote here. We got different schedule. Well, from Monday to Thursday, we got from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on Fridays, it's different. So it's from 7 to 12 p.m. So that's it. If you got any questions, please go ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan.